Welcome back, and welcome to part 6 of our series, What the Hell is Going On in Gaza? Through 23 episodes now, we've covered quite a lot. Mostly, we've focused on facts and history. For sure, there's a lot of that, and that's relevant. In this episode, though, we'll do something a little different. We'll talk about morality, right and wrong. There's a lot to think about with what's going on in Gaza, so let's get into it. We're going to start by talking about moral relativism, what it is and what it has to do with the war in Gaza. What is moral relativism? It is the belief that there is no objective standard for right and wrong. A moral relativist would say, who are we to judge others? Their lived experiences are different. Their cultures are different. Their circumstances are different. Therefore, whatever they do is okay, and we have no right to challenge them. That might sound reasonable at first, but it is horribly, horribly wrong. The problem with moral relativism is that it allows for all sorts of atrocities. Let me give you a few examples to make the point. Who are we to judge apartheid in South Africa? Who are we to judge slavery in Yemen? Who are we to judge genocide in Rwanda? No. Is it okay that some people can be discriminated against or be made slaves just because the circumstances of their cultures or situations are different than ours? Of course not. The danger of moral relativism is that it allows for bigotry, prejudice, racism, and oppression. The moral values in some societies require women to cover their hair. In the West, we shrug and say, oh well, that's just how it is over there. But Iranian women have been beaten to death over not properly covering their hair. What about fathers murdering their daughters for the shame they brought to the family by being raped? What about young men in Palestine being thrown off roofs for being gay? What about female genital mutilation, which happens today in 30 countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East? Moral relativism would tell us that we shouldn't judge these practices because we can't ever truly understand those different cultures. According to a December 2022 research report titled Honor Killings in the Eastern Mediterranean Region, a Narrative Review, which was published online by the National Institutes of Health, quote, the highest number of honor killings is believed to be in Pakistan. A total of 4,101 cases of honor crimes have been reported to the court in the period between 1998 and 2003 by the Pakistan Ministry of Interior. Furthermore, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan reports a steady increase in the frequency of honor killings. Also, quote, 18% of women killed were under the age of adulthood. That's less than 18 years old. Moral relativism allows for different groups of people, races, religions, castes, ethnicities, really any identifiable group, to be treated differently. In some cases, it's deemed okay because it's happening in a different culture. In other cases, it's deemed okay because of who's doing it or who it's being done to or why. Here, morality becomes relative to the circumstances. The Nazis murdered 6 million Jews because they deemed Jews to be Untermenschen, subhumans, and a threat to German society. Moral relativism allows for right and wrong to depend on such arbitrary and capricious determinations. The Nazis didn't believe what they were doing was morally wrong. That's moral relativism. When the Taliban in Afghanistan forbid women to be educated or have jobs or go outside without wearing a burqa, or when they allow them to be beaten and raped by their husbands with no consequences, it's because they're women. The Taliban do not believe what they're doing is morally wrong. That's moral relativism. When, quote, resistance by any means exactly that, it's okay because oppressors aren't entitled to the same rights as others. That's moral relativism. When the UN Special Agency for Women won't acknowledge or condemn the brutal, systematic, and grotesquely violent rape of Israeli women on October 7th, it's because oppressors aren't entitled to the same rights as others. That's moral relativism. When American teenagers are harassed and assaulted at school only because they're Jews, and that somehow links them to the actions of a foreign government some 5,000 or 6,000 miles away, it's okay because oppressors aren't entitled to the same rights as others. That's moral relativism, and it's madness. Young people are being taught to see the world only in terms of oppressors and the oppressed, colonizers and the colonized. They are also being taught to believe that any action taken to oppose oppressors and colonizers, or to support the oppressed or colonized, is not just allowable but righteous. This is moral relativism, and we have allowed it to become an entrenched ideology among many in the progressive left, and particularly at American colleges and universities. As a worldview, this is simply wrong. The world does not divide that way, and importantly, it is disgraceful to classify whole groups of people, races, ethnicities, nationalities, etc., as fundamentally good or fundamentally evil. This terribly flawed ideology is being applied to Israel and the Jewish people. The false narrative is that Jews are oppressors and Palestinians are the oppressed, and therefore any action by or on behalf of Palestinians against Jews is justified and even righteous, while any action by or on behalf of or in support of Jews is evil. Viewing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict this way is factually and historically inaccurate and morally bankrupt. This is important for perspective, and we need to have an accurate and appropriate perspective if we're to understand what's going on in Gaza. So let's consider Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. Do you really believe torturing innocent children is acceptable if they're born to a race, religion, or nationality that you deem to be part of an oppressor group? No. It is a moral abomination regardless of the situation. And so is rape, and so is kidnapping, and so is burning parents alive in front of their children, and so is burning children alive in front of their parents. There are no circumstances ever where such monstrous acts should be accepted or justified. Any ideology that excuses such acts under any circumstances is evil. There are no circumstances where this is morally acceptable. Applauding or even excusing this based on it being, quote, resistance by any means is morally wrong. These were posted by the IDF on X. Think about what actually happened. Babies stomped to death. Mothers and their children burned to ashes. Children cut to pieces. We can also see this moral relativism very clearly in the chants and posters of US and European protesters proclaiming, by any means necessary. That in itself should set off alarms. By any means necessary cannot be a permissible standard. Not only does this excuse Hamas's barbaric actions, what if those chanting and carrying posters decide that torture, murder, and kidnapping of so-called oppressors, which they are now defining as all Jews anywhere in the world, is necessary, which clearly some already do? That's the logical conclusion of their moral relativism, an oppressor versus oppressed worldview, and that has to be unacceptable to any civilized person. Because any ideology that justifies, quote, any and all means to attack members of a race, ethnicity, or nationality it deems oppressors is evil. Rather than moral relativism, we have to have a universal morality. Our Western civilization may not be perfect, but it is indisputably the pinnacle of human achievement in terms of human rights, equal rights, individual freedoms, prosperity, charity, medicine, science, technology, and more. There is no other time or place that even comes close. And so much of this exists because Western civilization birthed, embraces, and shares with the world the principles of universal morality. We believe all people are created equal. All people are entitled to equal treatment under the law, and all people deserve equal rights. There is right and there is wrong, and they don't depend on culture or circumstances or whether some group is deemed to be oppressors. We cannot accept anything less than that, even if you think Israel is in the wrong, even if our hearts ache over the suffering of Palestinians. If that is allowed to become a justification for barbaric acts of torture, rape, murder, and kidnapping, we won't have a civilization. There are some who say it's fine, who say burn it all down, but that's madness. If we want a better, fairer society, there are constructive ways to work toward that, but thinking that any good will come from abandoning our values, embracing barbarity, and burning down the best, fairest, and most humane society humanity has ever created is simply delusional. We have to defeat this thinking because we cannot accept a world where certain races or religions or ethnicities or nationalities can be considered undeserving of basic human rights and legal protections and left to be savagely victimized by others in our society. What a terrible shame it is that this needs to be said, but here we are, and it needs to be said. Thank you for watching episode 24 of our series, What the Hell is Going On in Gaza? This one was a special topic, and we hope it was helpful to you in getting a better understanding of the situation in Gaza and around the world. We learned that moral relativism allows some groups of people to have rights, but not others. That's where genocide, slavery, and discrimination come from. That's where by any means necessary as a basis for rape, torture, and horrific murders comes from. We learned that universal morality ensures all people have equal rights and is a bottom line requirement for any healthy civilization. If you'd like to leave a comment or get in touch, visit our website at www.getthefactsmiddleeast.com. There's much more to learn, so we hope you'll keep going. Next up is part 7, starting with episode 25, where we'll take a closer look at the role and implications of religious extremism. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your interest in learning more about the war in Gaza. And remember, where there is no knowledge, there can be no insight.